A young boy returns home from playing following a German air raid on London to find his home destroyed, and his mother, father and brother dead under the rubble. Photograph taken in 1945. A woman and 3 children join a soldier in the Union Army camp of the 31 St. Pennsylvania Regiment at Queen's Farm in 1861. In the early months of the war, women worked as laundresses and cooks while the volunteer soldiers drilled and constructed the defenses of Washington. Vance Palmer, a 15-year-old trapper boy, photographed by Lewis Hine in a coal mine in Harrison County, West Virginia, in September 1908. Eileen Keenan, a waitress at 1203 Restaurant, a restaurant owned by Ukrainian immigrants, in Washington, D.C., puts up a sign for free borscht in celebration of Stalin's death on March 6, 1953, a day after the death of Joseph Stalin. Mailman N. Sorensen delivers the Christmas mail and parcels in Chicago, United States during the winter of 1929. Tanks belonging to the 3rd SS Panzer Division Totenkopf driving through a field towards Kursk salient, Russia in July 1943. Tears stream down the cheeks of Chief Petty Officer, USN, Graham Jackson while he plays Goin' Home, from Dvorak's New World Symphony on the accordion as President Franklin D. Roosevelt's flag-draped funeral train leaves Warm Springs, Georgia on the April 13, 1945. A British Army chaplain saying a prayer over a dying German Army medic near AP, France on the September 18, 1918. Future 42nd President of the United States, Bill Clinton, at the age of 17 shaking hands with the incumbent 35th President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, during a visit of the American Legion Boys Nation to the White House in 1963. Left to right, Prime Minister of Canada William Lyon Mackenzie King, President of the United States Franklin D. Roosevelt, and Prime Minister of the United Kingdom Winston Churchill photographed together at the First Quebec Conference in August 1943. A Japanese man photographed riding a bicycle while carrying soba noodles on his shoulder in Tokyo, Japan in 1935. People looking out from the crown of the Statue of Liberty photographed by Margaret Burke White from a helicopter in 1952. African American boys on Easter morning, April 1941, in South Side, Chicago, Illinois, photograph taken by Russell Lee. British troops eating their Christmas dinner in a shell hole in Beaumont-Hamel, Somme, France on Christmas Day, December 25, 1916. A group of breaker boys at the Woodward coal mines in Kingston, Pennsylvania, pose for a photograph. Photograph taken in circa 1900? Geronimo, a prominent leader and medicine man from the Budonka band of the Nanda Apache people, photographed at the age of 75 in 1904. American troops on board a landing craft heading for the beaches at Oran in Algeria during Operation Torch in November 1942. German soldiers crowded around a Christmas tree celebrating Christmas somewhere on the Western Front during World War I. Real members of the Peaky Blinders street gang based in Birmingham, England, that were active in the late 1800s to 1910s. Left to right, Harry Fowles, Ernest Haynes, Stephen McNichol, Thomas Gilbert. U.S. 17th Airborne paratroopers, with their hair cut in Mohawk style, being briefed for the next day's jump across the Rhine, Arras, France. Photograph taken on the March 23, 1945. A Navajo man photographed in circa 1904 dressed as Nyanizgani, a mythical hero from Navajo mythology who, along with his brother Tabadzashini, rid the world of the Anai, monsters from Navajo mythology. The mugshot of Josep Broz Tito, President of Yugoslavia from 1953 to 1980, photographed in 1928 when he was arrested for communist activities. Mexican revolutionary leaders Pancho Villa and Emiliano Zapata sat next to each other at Palacio Nacional in Mexico City, Mexico, on December 6, 1914. Villa is sitting in the presidential chair. French painter Claude Monet photographed in his garden in Giverny, France, in 1899. One of the earliest known photographs of the street life of Tromsø, Norway. The image shows the main square in Tromsø and was taken by Knud Knudsen in 1875. Irish seaman and Antarctic explorer Tom Crean, holding a litter of puppies born on the Endurance ship during the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition of 1914 to 1917. A panorama showing what remains of the village of Aliman in France after being destroyed by thousands of artillery bombardments during the First World War. Photograph taken by Raoul Berthel in November 1918. Edward, Prince of Wales, future King Edward VII of the United Kingdom, right, smoking with his brother-in-law, Crown Prince Frederick of Denmark, future King Frederick VIII of Denmark, left, in January 1869 when they were both in their 20s. U.S. Army soldiers returning to the United States following the end of the Second World War in Europe. Photo taken in North River, New York on the August 6, 1945. French soldiers carrying a wounded comrade photographed in a trench on the Western Front in 1916. The construction of the Eiffel Tower in Paris, France in 1888, a year before the 1889 World's Fair of which it was the main symbol. A boy sits and reads among the ruins of a bookshop that was destroyed during an air raid in London, United Kingdom, in 1940. A crowded beach in Atlantic City, New Jersey, photographed in 1908. Margaret Burke White, a photographer for Life magazine, prepares to take a photo from one of the eagles on the 61st floor of the Chrysler Building in New York City in 1934. Guards at ferry landing on Mason's Island in Washington, D.C., examining a pass. Photograph taken by George N. Barnard in circa 1861. A street in the city of Segovia in Spain photographed in circa 1904. In the background, you can see the famous Roman aqueduct of Segovia. Two French soldiers of the 23rd Infantry Regiment photographed by France Adam in a trench, likely in the Péronne area, on the road between Péronne and Maricourt in late July 1916 during the Battle of the Somme. Times Square in New York City photographed at night on the December 29, 1953 by Samuel Gocho, William Schleisner. A street scene in Chicago, Illinois, photographed by Bill Strum in 1947. People boarding a Greyhound bus at a small town between Chicago, Illinois, and Cincinnati, Ohio. Photograph taken by Esther Bubley in 1943. Two soldiers pay their respects at a British First World War cemetery in France a few days before the 21st anniversary of the armistice in November 1939. Occupants of a sod house in Drenthe, the Netherlands, photographed standing outside in 1936. Place Maubert in Paris, France, photographed in circa 1900. The cars of steelworkers leave the mill in Midland, Pennsylvania, United States, in January 1940. French soldiers posing for a photograph in the trenches around Vauquois, Meuse, France on the December 17, 1917. A German soldier watches as a kitten plays with the magazine belt of an MG-34 machine gun. Photograph taken in the Soviet Union in 1942. People gathered in Guvzonderend alleyway in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, photographed by Jacob Oley in 1892. An organ grinder moving through the streets of New Orleans, Louisiana, photographed by Arnold Genthe in the 1920s. People moving after a massive mudslide engulfed their village in March 1931 in Savoy. It was the biggest landslide to ever happen in the French Alps, and many hamlets were deserted. Photograph taken on the March 17, 1931. The Flag War of Flensburg photographed in 1920. After the First World War, due to the Treaty of Versailles, two referendums were held to decide whether the former Duchy of Schleswig would remain as part of Germany or join Denmark. Highlanders and Dogres sat in a trench with shelters in Fauquissart, France on the August 9, 1915 during World War I. Members of the Swedish Women's Voluntary Defense Organization, Svenska Lottakaren, trained pistol shooting at a sports leadership course in Roslagen, Uppland, Sweden on the July 9, 1943. Racing driver Raymond Mays photographed losing a wheel at the Caerphilly Mountain Hill Climb race in Cardiff, Wales, in 1924. 9 monarchs photographed together at Windsor Castle in England for the funeral of King Edward VII of the United Kingdom on the May 20, 1910. Standing, from left to right, Haakon VII of Norway, Ferdinand of Bulgaria, Manuel II of Portugal, Wilhelm II of Germany, George I of Greece, and Albert I of Belgium. Seated, from left to right, Alfonso XIII of Spain, George V of the United Kingdom, and Frederick VIII of Denmark. American actor James Dean signs autographs in his car during the filming of the movie Giant in Marfa, Texas in July 1955, 2 months before the car accident that took his life. Evacuee Barry Peacock eating an ice cream while sitting on a naval mine that had washed up on the beach at Deal in Kent, England in 1940. Future King George VI and his daughter Princess Elizabeth, future Queen Elizabeth II, sitting on a bench with their corgi dogs in London, England in July 1936. During a German air raid, civilians take cover on the platform and tracks of Aldwych Tube Station in London, England. Photograph taken in 1940 during the Second World War. An American mechanic working on the tail fuse of an M64 carpetbagger general purpose 500 pounds bomb in the forward bomb bay of a Boeing B-29 Superfortress. Photograph taken in circa 1945.